information before I continue. The IOJ is Jamaica's premier cultural agency, and our mandate is really to encourage literature, science, and art, right? Now, it was established in 1879, and it was established by our governor of Jamaica, Sir Anthony Musgrave. And our objective here at the Institute of Jamaica is to act as a cultural catalyst, and this has been, you know, we have been able to transform the national landscape through projects and programs through our different divisions. Now, I am a part of the Programs Coordination Division, and we are otherwise known as the Junior Center, but that's just one of our major function. We have other centers as well as the Simon Bolivar Cultural Center. Now, the Junior Center, we offer services such as, or we offer programs to children such as the arts, visual and performing. And we also act as a means of encouraging students within our neighboring communities to come, you know, to join the programs and be inspired by the arts. These are the three centers that we oversee: the East Street Junior Center, the Greater Portmore Junior Center, and the Simon Bolivar Cultural Center. Our first established center is the East Street Junior Center. It was established in 1940 by Robert Verity, or Bob Verity, as he is affectionately known as, and it was the first lending library downtown. The Greater Portmore Junior Center was established in 1996, and it was established, or it was given to us, or gifted to us by the Matalan family. And finally, the Simon Bolivar Cultural Center. This was given to us by the Venezuelan government as a gift, and it was established in 2015. Here we offer Spanish programs such as Spanish classes, Latin dancing, and so forth. Okay, so why did I do this? Why did I do this research? All right, just a little introduction before we go into the statement of problem. Now, this research really discusses the challenges of distant learning in Jamaica due to COVID-19, and the just a little information about what COVID-19 is, although we know this. The World Health Organization described this as an infectious disease that presents symptoms similar to those of flu, cold, and this can be transmitted through droplets and body fluids. Now, social distancing was implemented by, you know, WHO and our local government to prevent the spread of this virus. And this led to the closure of schools and the adoption of remote learning. However, challenges such as the lack of access to the internet and devices, technical issues, lack of adult supervision were all observed. These challenges have affected the education system. It has affected our children, and this caused frustration among teachers, parents, and students. And this article basically aimed to identify the challenges of remote learning and teaching in Jamaica to formulate a solution to really mitigate the impact on the future of our children. Now, my statement was inspired by these videos. This is just one of the few videos that inspired my problem statement. Oh, audio. Yeah, audio. All right, so I guess audio is an issue. Can you hold the microphone to the laptop?
I'm gonna go watch Bucky Shore. Cause, long me there, so. take it, but still write it. Me not write nothing. You so much me that funny, me not write nothing. You write your turn back where me not write. If you write your turn upside down or back where anywhere they not turn. Me not write nothing. And that is not that. Not do nothing. Leave me alone. Good morning, miss. I'm born at yard. Me not feel to do work because when I do work at yard, we can't all hear what I say. And if you come out with a little fight. Okay. Okay, miss. Okay. Okay, miss. I know who space now. The not spend. Homework. Me I do my homework now. Hello. I'm waiting for some work because you have anything to do. This is not your teacher. I am a parent. I am not your teacher. Then I pick it up, so. You can look a ranking face the big day. You have to tell me something I forgot. So I said to you, I am not your teacher. I am a parent. How me I got on? What you want me to do? Or what you want me to stir up some bad what tell you? Should not do that, parents. You're a parent. You're kids. Here, call on my phone and don't send me a voice note to my phone again. Otherwise, I'm going to check it out and I'm going to go your parents. I said I am not your teacher. I am a parent. I am not your teacher. So why you keep on texting my phone and bothering me? Go get some manners, little picnic. Yes, you can delete this now.
Okay, so this was a major eye opener for me when I heard these audios circulating on the internet, and these are just children, parents, and teachers expressing how frustrated they are with the introduction of this remote learning. Just frustrated. I was frustrated as well. I am a mother. I had a kindergartner at home learning online. Frustrating. So frustrations are heightened, and this is evident. This was evident in the videos and the audios, as you heard. And this was being circulated by frustrated parents and teachers. And you could feel, I felt it. I felt how they felt, utilizing online platforms for schooling. In these videos and audio clips, children expressed that they were tired, that they were stressed out, and the teachers were expressing that they're confused because this was new to them, with the exception of the tertiary level teachers or professors or lecturers. A student also stated that she was just finished with school and she will just remain dunce. That really grieved me, you know, because she was tired of work. So, based on the experience with teaching Zoom, because I had the opportunity to teach, at 3 grade level, some Zoom classes, and the conclusions that I formulated was that students and parents were having problems with navigating the necessary platforms. And this was what really inspired my problem statement. Now, the significance of my study is that, it will add to the growing literature on this topic within Jamaica and the Caribbean region. It is the hope of this researcher that the result of this study can be used to encourage stakeholders to provide financial assistance for students and parents in need. I know people must be saying, but COVID gone, COVID is over, but no, we have to prepare ourselves. I am not going to be negative, I'm being realistic. We don't know what will happen in the future. 10 minutes? We don't know what will happen in the future, and we must prepare ourselves for the next pandemic. Not to sound like Bill Gates. Now, the purpose of the study is this was a qualitative study, and it explored the challenges of remote learning from the articulated and amplified perspective of the students. The objective was to explore challenges, and those are my research questions. I'll be coming to them soon. The objective was to explore challenges of remote learning from perspective of students and teachers, and to provide assistance for students and teachers struggling with remote learning. and to inform parents about the issues with online learning. How did I go about doing this study? Can continue. Go ahead. So my methodology, pardon the fine prints, but I'll talk to you. The study included participants from the urban and rural schools, from primary, preparatory, high school, and the tertiary level. This I utilized a purposive sampling method, and anyone who had experience with remote learning and teaching and who showed interest was invited to participate. The study had a total of 20 teachers, 15 females and 5 males, and 21 students, 10 males and 11 females. They all completed questionnaires or were interviewed face to face or virtually. Then they were given consent and assent forms. Before, they were given consent and assent forms, and this was shared with the teachers and interested students. Data was collected using interviews, questionnaire, observation, and recording. And interviews were conducted face to face, over the phone, virtually, and using Google Meet or Zoom, the same technological platforms that they were upset using. A Google form was also created with the interview questions, and participants were unable to be interviewed over the phone, in person, or over Google Meet or Zoom. Before the interviews began, permissions were requested for the interviews to be recorded, and real names were not used. Yes. Yes, that's what I'm getting to right now. So, the results from the questionnaire for the teachers, the article discussed that the results of a survey conducted on teachers about their experience with remote learning. The survey consisted of 8 questionnaires, and these are the questions that were on the questionnaire. It was concluded that teachers identified various ways they could improve remote learning for their students, including modifying their approach and being more supportive. The majority of the teachers believe that remote learning had negative impact on students, such as internet connectivity issues and a lack of face-to-face social interaction. But some positive effects, such as students becoming more technologically inclined, teachers use various methods to improve interactions during online classes, such as gamification and interactive videos. And many teachers faced challenges with teaching students online, such as unstable internet connections, low student participation. Attendance rates varied among teachers, with some experiencing a decrease in attendance since remote learning began, while others saw good attendance rates. For the students, the survey collected responses from students on several questions related to their experience with online learning. Most students did not find it hard to use online platforms for school, but some students faced issues with internet connectivity, device availability, and lack of knowledge about virtual learning environments. Most students had access to the internet. Most of my students that I spoke with, they had access. However, a few of them did not have access to the internet. They had access to devices. Students primarily used their laptops, tablets, and phones to access classes. Some students faced difficulties focusing during online classes due to distraction in their environment or technical issues, while others did not face such issues. Most students understood the lesson well when taught online, but a few of them faced issues with data finishing or navigating the online platforms. Some students even expressed to me that they were unable to access their device because their mother had it or their father had it. So I'm going to quickly conclude. Online learning has advantages such as safety for some students who feel threatened while commuting to school, economic benefits for parents who don't have to budget for transportation and lunch, flexibility for college students who can attend lectures from home. Despite challenges, funding from private sectors can be sought to provide devices and affordable internet to students. Cafes, libraries, and centers such as the Junior Center, because during the COVID-19 pandemic, we opened our doors to students who wanted to access online classes. So they were able to come in and utilize the internet and or devices. To keep students engaged, teachers can use virtual experiences, interactive online trivia games, and training sessions led by IT professionals. The pandemic has highlighted the need for a pandemic plan that integrates technology into the curriculum and creates resources for remote classes. Here endeth my presentation. I hope it wasn't too quick and I hope it wasn't too wordy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Miss Lloyd. Let us give her a smart, you know. I guess Miss Lloyd wanted to share with us about her institution. Yes, but, perhaps. All right. Any questions at this point? I am suggesting that perhaps we could ask Miss Lloyd something that wasn't brought out in her presentation, so she could flesh it out at this point.
Lovely presentation, Miss Lloyd. The audio that you had played earlier had a lot of non-academic related issues in terms of the frustration he was feeling, the input of the parent. I'm not sure what is the parent doing on the class, but those things um, would need a solution. And I was wondering, did you do any investigation into what triggered such a scenario like that, and what mitigating strategies could be used to balance that if we ever have to do remote learning, to mitigate against that happening again? But did you do any? I heard you say more money is needed for tablets, for internet services, more funding is needed. But in terms of the frustration of the child and the input of the parent and the interaction of that parent, did you investigate that in any way at all that you could share?
Thank you for that question. Yes, I actually did further investigation, especially with that particular little boy. He was frustrated because his he did not have access to his own device. Firstly, did not have access to his own device, and then it was the fact that he was not being supervised. As you heard, he said that his father was not here, so he's going to just put down the phone and do his own thing. He was not being supervised. He did not have his own device, and he could do anything he wanted. Apparently, he did not like. Maybe I'm not going to assume, but maybe he did not really like school initially. So this opportunity, it gave him some level of freedom to say, "Hey, let me just put down the phone." How can we resolve this issue? What we at the center we're trying to do is that we're trying to train. We're coming up with a program to train students as well as teachers. We need the funding, but we're trying to train teachers how to use these online platforms. That is one thing that we're trying to do. And we're opening our doors to persons within the community that we know, because we are surrounded by I don't want to use the wrong word, but we're surrounded by a lot of garrison areas, volatile areas, and these are the children that we see coming into our center and using our devices or computers. So we opened our doors, and it's free of cost for them to come in and use and we utilize our IT teacher as well to guide them along the way. So this is how we are trying.
Thank you, Miss Lloyd. Just a last question, anybody? One more. Yes, definitely.
I just want I know that some of the same results, right, are very much generalized across different research sites and population, right? Local and internationally. But and I know it's hard to manage students in a physical environment, much more in a virtual environment. Do you have any classroom management techniques that can be used in the online environment for the management of responses, management of behavior, and to curtail negative behaviors when they occur?
Hi, Doc. How are you doing? That is a very good question. So I have been thinking I did very well with class management when I was going to college, but I realized that that is one of the major problems within a virtual classroom that some teachers are facing. But I am going to have to sit down and think about that one and call you up and get back to you on that one because that is a challenge, of course. But what we could do is utilize probably gamification to grab their attention. And when it is that they're having some issue why they're acting out, there has to be a root cause. Try to find that root cause and resolve or help them to resolve it. Because children don't just act out like that. All right, thank you.
Sloyd, on behalf of TCJ, it's my pleasure to share this with you. And well done. I'm proud of you. I know, but there's always a first time, and you are doing well. All right, bless you.
Good morning, everyone. It gives me great pleasure to introduce the next two presenters. They are facilitators at my past college, Church Teachers College, andragogy or pedagogy, teaching adults versus children. Which do you prefer? So I'm going to start with the man. The man is Mr. Everton Clark. He is a music educator, curriculum developer, researcher, creative entrepreneur, leadership development facilitator, and the list goes on. I'll stop there. He's a man with creative socks, a creative socks collection. That's not on it, but I noticed. He is a lecturer and director of music at Church Teachers College in the School of Early Childhood, Primary, and the Creative Arts. He is the holder of a Master of Education in Educational Leadership from Temple University, Bachelor of Education in Music Education from Edna Manley, and he holds a certificate in Project Management from iCreate. And his co-presenter is Miss Shereen Williams. Miss Williams currently serves as HOD for the School of Early Childhood, Primary, and the Creative Arts at Church Teachers College. She holds a Master of Education in Educational Measurement from the University of the West Indies, a Bachelor of Education in Business and Computing from the University of Technology, a certificate in Supervisory Management from the University of the West Indies, a certificate in Integrating Technology in Education from the Michael University College, and professional certificate in Designing Curriculum Instruction and Assessment for students with special needs from Walden University. Ms. Williams is an active researcher and coordinator of research courses at Church Teachers College. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome our presenters today from Church Teachers College, Ms. Williams and Mr. Clark. Give them a round of applause.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. That sounds much more like it. Okay, so this morning, Mr. Clark and myself will be presenting on andragogy versus pedagogy. Now, Mr. Clark will start off because we are against time, so we're going to start off right away by outlining the background to our study, and then I will take over from the methodology and present the findings of the study. Now, andragogy is a science of how adults learn, and we're tertiary educators, which means that we should be teaching them how adults learn. Pedagogy is science of how children learn. And if we listen throughout some of the presentations so far, we realize that a lot of thought has gone into pedagogy, pedagogy, we keep hearing it, but we are tertiary, so we should really be focusing on the art of teaching adults. So what is really being used at a teacher training institution in Jamaica? Mr. Clark.
Good morning, colleagues. Can I have the next slide, please? All right, so the background to this study, as we should be aware, most entrants into tertiary institutions are graduates from the secondary level come straight in, right? 18 or maybe a little bit younger. So on that premise, we know they might enter the workforce at maybe 20 or so. It is then presumed that at this age, students are categorized as adults based on Piaget's theory, and teacher training institutions across the island tasked with training future nation builders and such is entrusted to create teachers that are critical thinkers, and we know with PEP now that is something, a conversation to be had. So teacher training institutions try to equip teachers with the requisite skill needed to assist with the creation of global learners. And as the definition states there, defines pedagogy as the science of teaching children and the science of teaching adults. We call that andragogy. So the purpose of this study is to investigate the type of methodology utilized in content delivery within a teacher training institution. And I'm sure later it will be teacher training institutions, and to ascertain the perception of student teachers on the methodology used and its effectiveness to present the lecturer's viewpoint on the methodologies utilized by them within the tertiary classroom. And practicum is an example of whether we are andragogues or pedagogues. So the questions we desired to have answered: how is content delivered at teacher training institution, andragogy versus pedagogy, and what are the students' perceptions of the method of delivery utilized by some of us here in the delivery of content? Next slide, please. So we are hoping that the information presented here will be of benefit to administrators, lecturers, and future researchers. Next slide, please. So, as we said earlier, the science and art of teaching children, pedagogy place importance of the role of the teacher in the education process. And we know with this NSC versus the one before, we talk about teacher-centered versus student-centered and the constructivist approach. What is it? And next point, the teacher decides what students should learn, how students are taught, and when the teaching and learning process will begin. So we can assume maybe that pedagogy is, again, teacher-centered. Now, andragogy is defined as the art and science of helping adults learn, in contrast to pedagogy, which is the opposite. And we can move. Go back for me. Forrest and Peterson claim that the andragogical approach is essential in management education to help prepare students for their working environment. So That's a thought for us. Are we preparing them for the working environment if we use the pedagogical approach versus the andragogical approach? And I learned something in the research, you know. The word pedagogue actually is a term used or was used to refer to an adult slave who accompanied a child for the process of learning. You knew that? Radam. Right? So, and again, one of the in reviewing the literature, in the teaching of law, the andragogical method is the preferred method because it allows for apparently critical thinking, self-directed learning, etc. So I won't go through this because I know time. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So there are some comparisons that we make between the two methods. So pedagogy depends on teacher, right? Pedagogy is from a blank slate, we're filling up a slate, right? To the opposite, andragogy is autonomous learning. The students come with some experience. So it's not a blank slate as a grade 1 student, a grade 2. Even though moving to grade 2, you're not necessarily blank. But as an adult, there are some more. Again, andragogy, students advance once they have completed the necessary steps. Learning is prescribed by an instructor. However, andragogy is prescribed by oneself, but with some guidance from the facilitator. Next slide, please. And no doubt there are advantages and disadvantages. So advantages, more structure and guidance for learners, easier to assess progress, can be more efficient in terms of time and resources. On the other hand, allows learners to take control and be more independent, focuses on the learner's experience and prior knowledge, our scholar scaffold, and encourages problem solving. And I'm not going to focus on any disadvantage, but you can see. You're seeing the slides, right? Okay, thank you. All right, but I'll read it. So less opportunity for learner autonomy and may not be relevant to some learners' experiences. On the other hand, may be too open-ended for some learners and can be difficult to assess progress. Next slide, please. And I hand over to my learned.
Okay, the methodology that we utilize. Now, I know the methodology out of my head, so I'm just going to run through it, okay? So you can progress as I go along. So we use a mixed methodology approach. The mixed methodology approach that we used was both quantitative and qualitative methods. We use the qualitative methods with the lecturers. So we use 10 lectures spanning across different departments, early childhood, humanities, math and science, so that we can get a feel of what is happening in each department. We use 100 students for the quantitative sample, and the 100 students spanned across all 4-year groups and all departments. Therefore, this study was able to grasp from all angles so that we can really ascertain what is it that is being used. The sampling technique that we utilized for the lectures, we used purposive sampling because we purposely selected persons. And for the students, we used convenience sampling because we created a Google form and sent it out, and those who were able to, the first 100 completed, and then we closed it off. For the instrument that we use, which is the survey, before we sent out that instrument, we made sure that we stabilized the instrument by running a Cronbach alpha, which yielded an alpha of 0.95, which means that the items in the questions were consistent and they were testing the right variables that we really wanted to test. To make sure that the instruments used for the interview, we made sure that we stabilized that by doing some peer reviewing. We used a 4-point Likert scale for the questions because we did not use 5. We wanted them to answer, so we did not use any undecided or neutral. So we used a 4-point Likert scale for our questionnaire. You can continue, sir. We spoke about validity and reliability, and we triangulated or data. Of course, we adhere to the ethical considerations to ensure that what we present here is actually sound information that you can rely on. Now to the meat of the matter, the findings. Okay, so first, the demographic detail. This is important. 80% of the 100 students that we tapped into, they were actually between the ages of 20 to 40 years, which means these are adults, big people, not no 17 or 18, big people. So 80% of the persons that we had were actually between the ages of 20 to 40, and 61% of them were third and fourth years, which means that they're in the tertiary system at least 3 years already. Now, the first one, what are the students' views on the use of the strategy that we are using? First one, the subject matter is organized in units. That is one of the tenets of pedagogy. Our course outlines are in units, which means that from the onset, we are geared towards pedagogy because that's how the courses are designed. Continue, sir. In the delivery of the content, the students, 67% of them indicated that we are the primary source of content. We give them everything. 72% of them said that we decide the way in which we are delivering our content. 87% of them said that we decide how we are delivering the content. That's all PED, which is true. But we are training critical thinkers. Is that what we really want? Continue, please, sir. So these are the graphical representation, because I'm catering to diversity in my room, of the information that I just presented. Next slide. So we realize that we are really PEDs right now. Continue, please. Continue, please. Now, in order to see whether it's PED or GOG, you know questions have to be on the questionnaire related to andragogy. The students, most of them, indicated that there was some opportunity in our content delivery that allowed them to reflect on whatever it is that they are learning. That is andragogy. So we are actually using some form of andragogy in our classroom. They also indicated that the lesson is organized around authentic or real life situations. Now, we talk about real life situation in PED, which is true, but in real life situation, andragogy, what you're doing is a real life situation must be linked to them in the classroom, because real life situations must be linked to teaching and learning, which is what they're going to do, which is workplace related. Understand the difference? So if you go in the classroom and you're teaching, like, let's say classroom management, and you're teaching about scaffolding and you just link it to a baby walking, it is still real life, but it's not connected to working. But if you link it to teaching, then the real life situation is linked to what they are going to be doing. So they said that we're doing a lot of that. Next. Self-improvement, they did say that we help them in the delivery of the course to have some form of self-development and self-improvement, which is also andragogy. So we realized then from the students that in all the cases related to us using pedagogy, over 70% of everything related to pedagogy, that's what we're doing. So we realized that we're using some andro, but we are mainly using PED. So there are some tenets of andragogy utilizing lesson delivery. 84% of them said that we're very authentic and that we give them the opportunity to do some form of reflection. Now let's move on to what the lecturers said that they are actually doing. All right, so the lecturers believe off the bat that the course creation was constructed with a more teacher-directed approach. They also said that the courses that the teacher-centered approach was utilized for the delivery of the course mainly dependent on the course content, but more so they try to incorporate some PED in their delivery. They also confessed, sorry, wrong word, but they did say that they are the main source of content delivery, which ties into what the students said. And they said that they didn't really have a lot of time to have self-directed learning, to give the students time to do self-directed learning in their classroom. Prior knowledge, talking to the students before you prepare for the lesson, is a tenet of andragogy. But we use prior knowledge during the delivery, not before we prepare for it. And so that is more pedo than andro. The lecturers, go back please, the lecturers rationalize that because of a sort of dependency of the students, they like to depend on us, so we don't really push for the self-directed learning. They also established that they try to incorporate as much as possible a student-centered classroom, and they incorporate real-life situation in their classroom. For them, they said it was mandatory. If they don't do it and connect it to the classroom, there's no link. So they try to do that, and they try to use a flipped classroom, which is all andragogy. Self-evaluation is incorporated, they indicated, but they do it indirectly, not purposefully. And autonomy was barely used because of time constraints. So the modality used by the lecturers was in fact a combination of PEDS and, though it was evident that pedagogy was utilized mainly because of time constraints. And the lecturers did indicate that they would love to incorporate more andragogy. However, the mindset of the students would need to change before they can actually utilize it. But what do the students want? The students confessed that they would like an opportunity to have more autonomy over how they learn. They also indicated that, they also indicated that they think that if they had more self-direction, they had more control over how they learn and what they learn and when they learn it, that it would motivate them to do better. And so our recommendation is that we need to maybe redesign our courses because we're tertiary educators. One size does not fit all. What's happening in the secondary should not be happening here. So we need to, from the bat, redesign our courses so that we can facilitate more andragogy. And also we need to redesign the appraisal instrument that is used to appraise us, because the appraisal instrument is also appraising us on a pedagogical viewpoint. The culture of the students needs to be changed as well. They are too dependent, and so once they transition from secondary to tertiary, we need to help them to transition between first and second year so that by the time they get to third to fourth, then they are more independent learners. We need to incorporate pedagogy. We can't throw it out, because depending on the course and depending on the unit you're doing, you would have to incorporate some PED in your course delivery. And andragogy, if incorporated more in the tertiary sector, can create an opportunity for students to direct how they learn, what they learn, and why they learn certain content. And this might, in essence, expand the scope of adult education so that students can utilize the content they interact with. Because if they have more control over it, they'll own it, and so they'll utilize it more. And so, in conclusion, there is still space for pedagogy, and while some students' subject content area may require aspect of this approach, in the context of tertiary education and the duty to create critical thinkers, the andragogical approach to content delivery would be better to aid adult learners. It is necessary to have a transitional program in place to assist students with transitioning from the pedagogical model to the andragogical model. And with the trust to be more intentionally, to create more intentionally engaged students, to be critical thinkers, to be problem solvers, and to be a part of the 21st century global market. It is necessary to ensure that the teaching and learning process encourages and facilitates self-directed learning, autonomous learning, and real-life infused learning. We thank you.
That was quite a mouthful, but very relatable, wouldn't you say? And it was done in one college, but I'm sure that persons from other colleges can relate because I was glued. All right, so we're going to field some questions. We have space for about 4 questions. So I saw that hand first.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Miss Williams. One quick question. It is said that when the students leave, they teach how we teach. So my concern is to emphasize the andragogical approach now. Will they be able to make the switch?
And that is where we are restricting our students, because the andragogical approach is not about them teaching how we teach. It's about them learning in the way that will facilitate them to be able to transition to teach in the right way. If we look at the PEP questions, if we look at how CXC is set, we need to skew our students to become strong critical thinkers. And when we do that with the andragogical approach, they can now transfer that to help their students, whether it's in the primary or secondary sector. But as it is now, we are pushing content on them, and they are going out pushing content on the students. And that is not how standardized examinations are set anymore.
We're going to take somebody, not from Church Teachers College, no, but another. Okay.
Thank you very much, Ms. Williams. Good morning, colleagues. Thank you, Mr. Clark. I don't know if it's a recommendation, but I just want to say that during the orientation, if it's possible that students are exposed to these PEDA and ANDRA Goji methods of teaching, also that students can understand what they are and appreciate what they are. And apart from these students, I also think that leadership mindset must be changed. And when I talk about leadership here, I'm talking about senior lecturers, HOD, maybe some principals, so that they will also get it, because most times teachers that use the andragogy, students tend to have issues with them, and they go all over the school on the corridor, and the same you, my colleagues, you guys chat with the students that they are not being taught. Instead of you to reorient them and to let them know that they are adults, instead, all of us sitting down here, you join the wagon and say, yes, they are not being taught. So at the end of the day, I believe that this is holistic. Everybody's mentality sitting in this room must be changed, and let students know. Because when I was talking about this, a student told me, well, that is why me come here, so that's why me never go UWI and you take. I said, really? So that they can get the breast milk. You see it? But I have told them the breast milk dry now. They said they will take the cow's milk. That's what they told me. So at the end of the day, it's not like some of them don't really know what they are doing. They really know that they can do better. And sometimes, this is where some of our colleagues struggle, those that want to use the andragogy, and students start to compare. This miss always, or teacher always give me, why is it that this teacher? But most times I tell them that the other teacher is doing a better job than me, that we give them everything. So colleagues, I hope when we leave here, those of us that join the student wagon, you start to reorient them that they need, because listen, what is constructivism? Constructing your own knowledge. Knowledge that you construct for yourself, you will never forget it. But the knowledge that you construct for the students, they swat and they regurgitate. And once you vomit, then it is gone. They are vomiting to get the A+. And after they vomit it, they don't learn it. When they come into my class, I say, remember what you did in year 2? No means after exam, me never remember that. I said, really? So, good job, good job. So I hope this conversation will continue.
One more. One more.
Hi, good morning. I enjoyed your presentation. You mentioned a issue that many presenters have said teachers don't have time, and I wanted to know, in order to improve upon their. I agree with that point, and I agree with the constructivism that you're speaking of, but that takes a lot of time. I have seen a student try to create the knowledge on her own, and different levels of the learning curve. Slow students will pick up slower than the smarter students. They'll turn over in their minds, and you can see it happening right before you. But one student will take the whole teaching session to grasp it, constructing it. It takes a while. No, not necessarily time for myself, but the time in the classroom that we need. That sound like a 3-year plan.
All right. Miss Williams and Mr. Clark, TCJ, thanks you so much for your very good presentation. I'm sure that everybody could relate. Everybody sitting here could relate. And we have to now think of a growth mindset. And we have some thinking to do and some strategies for the betterment of our students, especially those who are going to come to sustain our college population. So I'm going to call on Mr. Clark first. Mr. Clark, I would like to thank you. TCJ would like to thank you for an excellent, contributing to an excellent presentation that we all could relate to. And this is a token. Miss Williams, I want to thank you on behalf of TCJ for such an excellent presentation. It was well received and very thought-provoking. I could say riveting too. Thank you so much.
Don't go, please. Don't go. We have our third presenter. Welcome. Oh, yes, yes, yes. A true, a true, a true. Remember that. Oh, yes. Okay, colleagues. I call Miss Chanel Samuels to join me. All right, Miss Samuels, a lecturer and student research coordinator at Shorter Teachers College in the mathematics department. She's presently pursuing her MPhil PhD in mathematics at the University of the West Indies. Her research interests are action research, project-based learning activities, mathematics intervention, and financial statistical data. Did I get that right? All right. This morning, Miss Samuels will be speaking to her topic titled An Investigation into the Effects of Secondary Mathematics Trainee Teachers' Use of Mathematics Language in Reducing Mathematical Errors. Um, Let us give Miss Samuel a hearty round of applause. And remember, the time is.
All right. Good morning again. So this research is actually a work in progress. So this is based on where it is that I'm up to now. So it's still ongoing. All right. So let me begin. All right. So as it relates to the background of the study, so what has been happening is that over the years, even before I was born, based on the literature, we have seen where they constantly keep talking about mathematical underachievement right through, and every year they're trying to address that. Now, a few years ago, the government made a decision to actually form a mathematics unit as it relates to math coaches as well as math specialists to try and see if it is that they could one assess what is happening in as it relates to achievement, and two to find innovative ways. So as we all know, when the NCTM was first created, in terms of our model, it wasn't well utilized and it was adopted by Singapore, is actually running with it. So yes, so they're kind of ahead of us. So yes. Now, the next thing that I want to refer to is our mathematical vocabulary, which is actually inadequate. Now, yes, it is that they have been trying to find innovative ways to be helping with mathematics in terms of understanding. But the problem is that is actually seen still is that students are not being given sufficient time to comprehend the mathematics. So we're all back to square one again at achievement. The constant drive in terms of achievement, because government really wants something that can be quantified, and performance is what it is that can actually be quantified. So if it is that the students are actually, progressing in terms of learning the curriculum, there is no true way to represent it outside of quantifying the data. And that is really an issue. And as stated before, the ministry developed a special maths unit. Now, the constant pressure to write through every time it is that I'm reading, the problem why it is that students keep making errors. Primary focus, academic performance. And this has created a societal pressure. The next thing is teachers lacking the pedagogical knowledge that is actually needed to properly communicate the mathematical content. So we're talking about fluency as it relates to mathematics. And even yesterday, another presenter actually spoke about that, where it is that a study was actually done where teachers, even at the tertiary level, has actually imparted incorrect math content. Now, errors that have been seen, silly mistakes, misconceptions, and misunderstanding. Now, silly mistakes, is where students are rushing and make these mistakes. Misconception, as we know, is tied to conceptual understanding. So, a student might be looking at a concept, but how it is that they are actually getting it, they are not really understanding it. And misunderstanding is how it is that the maths is actually being communicated. Now, I've spoken already about math vocabulary, and we have been seeing inappropriate use of the math language, which is actually impacting on mathematical errors. Now, this is a sample model. I know for some of you, you might not understand because it is math oriented. So, this was actually a a talk right model that was actually utilized in a study where it is that students were asked to verbally state what it is that they know about the intermediate value theorem and also to write as well as to provide some diagram related to it. So for those who understand the maths, you can actually see that the student was actually trying here to verbate what really it is, but they were struggling and then they tried to make some correction here. So even though the correction, they corrected themselves, which is good that they are able to recognize what it is that they would have actually said incorrectly up here and try to address it. It's not perfect, but you saw that they made some amendments to correct it here. The written is actually far better than what it is that they said. It is good, but not perfect as well. The diagram is also good, but still not perfect. Over here now, this student tried as well to verbate what it is that the IVT is, as well as to write it, but there is a struggle. They are not able to recognize what is really related to the domain values versus the range values. So yes, so that was the issue. Now, as it relates to the purpose of the study, so my focus is really on identifying an appropriate use of mathematical language, and I have sought to design intervention to improve mathematical language, reduce mathematical errors, and the aim is to test the resultant effect on academic performance. I'm not there yet for this piece. Now, as it relates to the research questions, so the first one, to what extent does inappropriate use of mathematical language impact mathematical errors made in the mathematics classroom? And two, how effective is the use of appropriate mathematics communication through the uses of written and oral expressions in the reduction of trainee teachers' mathematical errors? Now, the significance of the study. Say it is important for the following reasons. So, as stated here, teacher trainees can become more competent as it relates to employing the mathematical language. Another one, collaboration in employing teaching strategies to reduce errors. And when I say collaboration, I'm referring to both at the tertiary level, at the teachers' college, as well as collaboration among students. So it is twofold. Because when it is that we collaborate to find suitable ways to help the students, and again, as stated before, related to angraging, so yes, for us as lecturers, and then for the students to impart the pedagogy. Now, as well, administrators, and administrators are always going to be playing a major role, because in order to be working on this, administrators actually need to provide the resources as well as amending curriculum to target mathematical errors. So based on looking at curriculums, I've looked at quite a few curriculums across Jamaica, and what it is that I have observed is that they do not incorporate the mistakes that are likely made for students to be acquainted with it, as well as for teachers to be acquainted with it. And because of that as well, it can be problematic. Now, the research design is actually an action research, and it was done using purposive sampling, because I was really focusing on where it is that the problem stemmed. So it is kind of slightly convenient as well. And qualitative approach. Now, the data collection instruments, questionnaire interviews, classroom observation, pre-test and post-test. When I say pre-test and post-test, I'm referring to actual mathematical content pre-test and post-test. Worksheets, as well as reflections. Now, the participants involved is 54 Jamaican secondary teacher trainees across all the year groups in Kingston and St. Andrew. And the data analysis is actually focusing on descriptive and coding analysis using descriptive statistics, using Excel where necessary. Now, as it relates to the findings, so my focus is on the research question 1. Now we're talking about the extent of inappropriate use of math language impacting mathematical errors in the classroom. So coding and thematic analysis was done, and these are actually what it is that was picked up coming out for as it relates to the themes, and these are the indicators as it relates to the codes. Now the first thing, inability to recognize functions and the indicators stated here. So students even at the tertiary level are still not able to make the connect of really what a function really is. So yes, and truly how it is that input makes a function work. As well, they're also struggling identifying the properly utilizing the properties of functions and expressions. So I kind of give an overview here of some that were actually pulled out from different courses. So uses of law of indices. So students actually merging this. So they're seeing this being related to this. However, they are two different things. Similarly, logarithm. So yes, so quite a few courses where we're looking at logarithm and the students are not able to recognize that this is actually a misconception. Again, trainee teachers not seeing mathematics as a language. So as stated before, even though it is that it is mainly symbolic, they need to recognize that just as how you're learning a foreign language, it is the same way it is that mathematics can be learned. And similarly, so yes, so they're struggling in terms of reading and interpreting worded problems and also providing improper mathematical statements. Now, another area of concern, and it was stated here today about prior knowledge for future use. And I'm going to be explaining about that, and students keep saying it year after year. So what it is that they have done. So say they learned today about fractions. They put it in a one box and lock it away. And tomorrow it is that they learn about linear equation. They put it into another box and lock it away. They are creating this disconnect, and that's what it is that I am saying. They need to create the relation. So they're seeing how it is that all these topics flow into each other, despite the fact in terms of free strands. So for me, when I'm teaching, I don't talk about strands. Sad to say, but I'm just expressing it. Because students want to isolate, because it is that the syllabus actually isolate it in terms of strands. So they believe that they should also isolate it accordingly, and I don't believe in that. Now the next thing is distinguishing routine problems from non-routine ones. So the students are actually struggling pertaining to that. In a recent, activity that was given in a course, yes, with another lecturer, we also saw that where it is that students were struggling. They went out on teaching practice, and they were now asked to actually take the non-routine problem and transfer it and make it into a routine problem, and they actually struggled with that. Now, another concern, difficulty linking the mathematics to their daily life. Simple little things. They get up every day and they drink maybe the little box or even the soda, and they don't realize that really ingredients and stuff, volume and all of those concepts are coming out. They're not seeing it. So they are not able to make those linkages. Now, some specific items, inability to recognize function. So here it is that they were doing. So I just kind of put it from some. So they were doing some presentation activity, and this is coming from a population model, and they were actually trying to turn this into a linear. So they were linearizing this. So usage of function, unable to recognize that ln is really a function. So they are saying they're multiplying by ln rather than realizing that ln is actually driving the process to linearize. So even though it is that they get the thing correct, but here in the explanation process, it's not a multiplication process. So there is disconnect. And again, through and through, I'm not going to go through all of them, but examples that are seen here. So for example, integration process. So we're integrating, changing with respect to x, and notice that right here, so the student actually put it before the integrand, and it is in terms of x. So these are the things that are actually coming out simply using distributive properties. So this one here is related to what is happening from, so this is coming from primary school, struggling with distribution property. So yes, even at the tertiary level, they are struggling with these things. And so we see again different examples. Now for the research question 2. So when it is that the strategy was used, these were the things that actually were focused on. So, active learning strategies. Write words on a concept and discuss it with our partner. So we are talking about think, pair, share. And then when it is that they discuss it, they know they have to share it in terms of speaking it as well as writing it. So yes, because I tell them already, when it is that you echo the maths in terms of speaking and writing it, it will become clearer to you. Also, correcting fellow classmates' mathematical ideas and a concept. They are not too quick to do it because some of them feel like, they should have known it and stuff. So resharing at times, they become, a little bit withdrawn. But I encourage them to do so. Building vocabulary of words and phrases related to the concept, so they need to actually know. Simple addition, I hearing students going out and teaching practice and the words that they're utilizing for addition, and I'm like, who told you that? No. So yes, so vocabulary of terms are actually important. The usage of technology as well and physical manipulatives along with posters relating to the different concepts. So what it is that we have been doing at times like mini expos and stuff where students are actually sharing what it is that they're doing, and right then and there for them to move around and see where it is that they go wrong and so on and to fix. So yes. So the approach is really trying to get them to become more self-directed, as was discussed before. So even though it is that they don't really like it, I am trying to help them so it is that they can move towards that. But also we provide mathematical intervention because at times they're going to fall short where it is that they're comprehending. So we actually meet and actually flesh out so it is that we can fix whatever misconceptions. So yes, it's not part of the timetable and it is really time consuming, but they really need it because I'm tired of them. When they go out there, it's going to continue to be a cycle. They go out there, they teach this, and then it is that when it is that the other students grow up, they come back to us, so the cycle continues. And I'm trying to see how best it is from my end, how to help to minimize that as much as possible. So yes. All right, so conclusions. So teacher trainees have limited familiarity with mathematical concepts. The next one, the usage of games, role plays, group discussions, and creation of posters have helped them in improving their use of mathematical language. Now, as it relates to implications, some more investment in mathematical intervention plans are needed in terms of time and finances, as well as a need to encourage students to do more self-reflection in a strategic way and review their work properly. I've been stressing self-reflection. The time I say it is a lot of work, but I've been stressing it. Go through based on objectives and learn the mathematics intentionally. So yes, so that is really what it is. So even though they say, Miss, you're stressing us out, I am actually stressing that. So yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Samuels, for that excellent presentation. I see the passion in you for teaching. Keep it going, keep it burning. I now invite my colleagues to ask your questions, this gentleman, and then yes, sir.
All right, thank you very much for the presentation. Very highly mathematical. Yes. But as it relates to the maths language, that for me is extremely important. Because I've seen where teachers, because of the way or they use the language, and I link this study to my own presentation that I did as it relates to misconception, errors, misunderstanding. And I am seeing now where, because of how the maths language is used in the classroom, it is related to student developing errors. Because of how the language is used, the student can develop misunderstanding or misconception. So, question: when will you finish the study? And then where do we go from there?
Is this a part of your PhD, MPhil?
Oh no, because this is educational. My study is actually um, mathematics. So yes, so this is educational. So I'm focusing on research, as I was saying before, financial statistical data. So this is different from that. So yes, so I'm focusing on this for publication.
As lecturers at the college level, we now have some opportunity to make whatever changes that we can make if in individual college in our own department. Now that we understand the problem and we see what is happening, then outside of publication, then we should be able to now make some kind of impact in terms of how we teach mathematics at the college level to ensure that we be more concerned and be more deliberate in how the language is used, and not just the way how we teach or how we lecture. Well, I teach, I don't lecture. The way how we teach, but we should be deliberate in letting the trainee teachers understand that the language that you use when you are going to teach is going to be very important.
Miss Sam, can I first just say I am praying for you because of the subject you teach, and I am rooting for you. Worse, like, oh, it's not your PhD. I feel like next week you're going to tell us say you quit. I thought it was your PhD, but I can see where you can give up on this. You are fighting an uphill battle, and it is not easy. And I pray the blood of Jesus on you. Um, I teach chemistry, and I find myself teaching math more than I teach chemistry. Um, two questions for you. The I would imagine some of these arrows that I am seeing, the log arrows, they're in a textbook. So is that textbook not being incorporated enough, or there is no textbook that is being used in the classroom when teaching? The real life examples that teachers are finding hard to come up with. In the 5E model, I'm assuming that is the explore phase, and I would hope there is some library of these examples that they can use, even if they can't come up with one. Is there a library? But lastly, the intervention, because you are looking for an intervention. Let me throw my 2 cents that it may be, if you're going to develop an intervention with the other two mathematics experts that are in this room, which I know you can't do it alone, you cannot do this alone. So the intervention you are going to implement, because I'm praying for you, look into early childhood. It is not your field, but the intervention perhaps needs to start where Dr. Professor, the gentleman who did the research the other day and said early childhood is where the finances are needed most. I would encourage you to look at the early childhood area for the intervention when you start it. Include what should be done, what needs to be done, what must be done at the early childhood education level.
All right, thank you very much for that. Just one last question or two. One, two.
Just to comment on early childhood, unfortunately, the Ministry of Education came up with specialization at the early childhood level at the teacher training institutions. So what we now have is that a lot of students are going to language arts and social studies, and very few go to math. That was against what we wanted, because we didn't quite understand why early childhood teachers were going to become specialists. That didn't make any sense. So if it is now that we are training a few mathematics teachers, can you imagine what will happen in the next 10 years? So from a policy level, we have already gone wrong. I don't know how we're going to rescue that.
Thank you. Good morning. Um, I heard the question fielded by this gentleman here. He was asking, where are you going after this? And he was kind of stressing that. I think he wanted to go where that our colleague over there just went, to policy level, because that's really where, we have to go. But also, I listened as I came in and I heard where you were, and I'm happy that you have said, and I like the ease with which you presented your stuff. It was just so nice, right? And so, right, and I'm saying, I'm glad that you are teaching your students to recognize that mathematics is a language. And so, also that the vocabulary and the language that we use, the English language that we use to communicate, the math language that is symbolic, is very important as well. And the vocabulary of the language of the content area is also important for them to understand thoroughly. So I applaud you on where you're going. I applaud you on what I've heard, and I look forward to hearing more from you, Miss.
Good morning. You mentioned in your presentation that student teachers need to spend more time to prepare their work so that they can deliver. For math and science teachers, because you know they intertwine, what is being done for student teachers in terms of deliberate training for us to incorporate the mathematics vocabulary development? Because if we are not taught how to do it deliberately, then we can't incorporate it when we're preparing our own work. That's just for the student teacher section that you mentioned.
So before I'd made my conclusion, I'd actually indicated the different ideas that I've actually been testing, and it is still ongoing. So in terms of re-stressing, as I spoke about, in terms of verbalizing the math, writing the maths, discussing it, because students are running away from coming out and sharing. And I actually give them the mark and I said, go to the board. That is me. I'm very deliberate, because I want to see what ideas you have. So even if it is that you're struggling, I said, here is where it is that we're going to discuss it, and here it is where we're going to fix it. So let us address it. So you don't go forward, so you don't leave here, and you are struggling with it, because it's going to fall back again with the same assessment. Because if you don't comprehend, it's still going to affect your grades, because students are focusing on grades because of society, right? So yes, it's still going to affect your grade. So you might as well just capitalize on the moment and just participate. We do posters as well. We do exposition, mini expositions as well. We do micro teaching sessions as well, even though it is that students are also kind of against, really micro teaching session. So yes, to help them to develop and to comprehend the language. So yes, so I'm being very intentional.
Well, thank you very much, Miss Samuels. I know you practice what you preach. That's it. And that's all we can do. And if we do that, model, the students will, catch on and do likewise. All right, without further ado, um, on behalf of TCJ, it's just a little token of our appreciation. And God bless you and continue your good work.
Thank you so much, Dr. Letty. Thank you so much to our audience, to everyone who participated in this session and all other sessions. All right, so as you would have noted in the magazine, our presentations in terms of the concurrent sessions are finished. Huh? Crying like me? Want more? Isn't that so? All right, so just about now, our workshops will begin. So you will grab your break. What do we call it? Meet and mingle, just for a few minutes, and then we will return to the main room for our workshops. All right, so enjoy the rest of your day. God bless.